The first time I heard the train whistle echo through the town of Monroe, I was 5 years old, clutching my mother's hand as we walked past the rusted tracks that split our side of town from the other. People said the tracks weren't just steel and wood. They were a line drawn deep into the soil, dividing black from white, poor from privileged, silence from power.
On the other side of the tracks, we heard the whistle too, but it meant something different for us. Not a boundary, but a song of routine, of normalcy. I never knew what life was like beyond them until I met Isaiah. He had eyes like burning coal and a voice that carried history. Not the kind we read in school, but the kind written on skin.
The morning sun spilled over the rail yard like melted copper, warm but hiding the cold truth beneath. Darnell stood with his hands in his pockets, watching the old locomotives like ghosts lined in steel. He remembered when his father worked here, before the layoffs, before the whispers.
The whispers started when another black worker went missing. No one said it aloud, but everyone knew something was wrong. When Jamal disappeared too, the silence became a warning. And now Darnell couldn't shake the feeling that he was next.
A clatter of metal jolted him. A worker dropped a wrench nearby and gave a nervous smile. Darnell nodded but didn't smile back. The tension in the yard was thick enough to cut with a blade. Every glance held questions, every silence, accusation.
At lunch, the table where the black workers used to sit was nearly empty. Those who remained whispered in short bursts, like birds ready to take flight. Darnell listened, half afraid of what he might hear, half afraid he wouldn't hear anything at all.
The warehouse stood like a ghost from a forgotten century. Its rusted skeleton creaked under the weight of years and memory. Inside, the air was thick with dust and stories no one dared to tell aloud. Malik tightened his grip on the folder he carried. Photos, affidavits, records, proof.
Tamara watched him from the doorway, her eyes sharp with worry. "You're really going through with this?" she asked, voice low like she feared the walls could still listen. "This place holds the truth," he answered, "and I won't let it stay buried."
They moved carefully through the debris, passing collapsed beams and shattered crates. Malik paused near a concrete pillar where a spray of faded red paint still read, "Property of Garrison Freight." He remembered stories his uncle whispered, of workers unpaid, beaten, disappeared.
Tamara knelt beside a rusted locker. Inside, she found a bundle of ID badges, each one marked "Terminated" in red ink, names of men who never came home. She swallowed hard. Malik. These were real people.
"I know," he said softly, "and someone needs to answer for them." Thunder cracked outside. The storm was building, but inside, the silence spoke louder than any lightning. They spray-painted, "Go back where you came from," on the side of the store. We spent the morning scrubbing it off. My mother silent, her lips pressed thin. My sister cried, not because of the words, but because she saw Mama cry. That night I asked my grandfather why people hated us. He didn't answer at first, just looked out the window and whispered, "Because they fear what they don't try to understand."
We carried names like Jamal, Amina, Fatima, names that clung to history, names that echoed in prayer rooms, in whispered lullabies, in classrooms where teachers paused before speaking them aloud. But our names are not weights, they are anchors. They ground us in who we are, in stories older than the land we're told we don't belong to.
I remember my father once said, "The world will try to rename you. Don't let it." I didn't understand back then, but now, when they call me just a refugee or trouble, I answer with my name. Strong, full. I carry it like my grandfather carried his prayer beads, with pride.
At school, I started correcting them. It's not Jamal, it's Jamal. Some laughed, some rolled their eyes, but slowly they learned, slowly they listened. We are not here to be renamed for their convenience. We are not shadows to be softened.
I wear my name like armor now. Each syllable a piece of heritage, at each letter a battle we refuse to lose. And when I speak it, I see my ancestors stand behind me, silent but proud. The names they gave us were not just words. They were weights, etched onto our backs like invisible scars. Every syllable a memory of someone we lost, someone we tried to become, or someone we feared we might never be.
My grandmother's name was carved into my heart long before I understood why she cried in her sleep. "Luella," she whispered once, holding my hand too tight. "Don't let them take that from you." I never forgot.
At school, they shortened our names to fit their comfort. Malik became Mal. Jamila was Jamie. And I was just Jay. It didn't feel like me. It felt like something broken off and left behind.
But on the old tracks, in the rust and heat, our names came back to life. Malik chanted his father's name like a hymn. Jamila painted hers in chalk on the freight cars. I whispered mine to the wind and felt it echo in the rails.
Our names were never lost, just buried, under shame, under survival. But they pulsed in our blood, waiting for the moment we would finally call them back with pride. The march stretched farther than I could see, a river of people pouring into the streets like a pulse. Signs waved above heads, some handmade, some printed, all filled with pain and resolve. My daughter held my hand tighter as we walked, her eyes wide, not from fear, but from awe. We weren't alone, not anymore.
I watched from the steps of the library, my notebook in hand, scribbling phrases I could barely keep up with. The chants, the drumming feet, the mothers pushing strollers, the old men with canes. This wasn't just a protest. It was a reckoning, a gathering of voices long denied, and I couldn't look away.
They tried to silence us before, with fear, with laws, with bullets. But the truth walks on legs now. It rides chants and lives in rhythm. It cannot be stopped by sirens or fences. When I turned to my daughter and asked her if she was tired, she shook her head. "No," she said, "we haven't finished walking yet."
Somewhere behind me, an old woman began to sing. Others joined in, unsure at first, then louder, until it became something holy. I closed my notebook. Words couldn't match this. Not today.
We gathered in the church basement, where the ceiling was low, the air thick with sweat and whispers. The folding chairs creaked under the weight of tired bodies and heavier memories. No one came here just to listen. We came to testify, to remember, to name the unspoken.
One by one, people stood. Old women with trembling hands, students with clenched fists, fathers who'd buried sons, and each name they spoke hung in the air like smoke. Tamir, Brianna, Emmett, Alton, a litany of loss, sacred, heavy, unerasable.
When it was my turn, my voice shook, but I spoke. My brother's name was Marcus. The room held still, honoring him, and I realized we weren't just telling the world who we'd lost. We were daring it to remember.
Outside, the night pressed in, but inside we burned, not with hate, but with love too immense to keep quiet. The names were our torches, carried high through darkness, and the march, when it began again, sounded not like feet on pavement, but like drums of memory.
The march spilled into the heart of the city, where skyscrapers loomed like watchful giants. Helicopters circled above, their blades slicing the air, but we did not flinch. We were no longer shadows. We were flame, breath, ancestors rising through our lungs.
The police stood like walls at the edges, unmoving, unreadable. But we looked beyond them. We saw the children watching from windows, the elders who clutched prayer beads as we passed. This story was not just pain, it was possibility.
A boy next to me held a sign. We are the dream unfinished. I felt tears then, not of sorrow, but of knowing that each voice, each step, each name shouted into the sky was a stitch in a torn flag, a reclaiming of something stolen.
At the courthouse steps, we stopped. Silence fell, not from fear, but from reverence. And then one by one we sang. No microphones, no leaders, just a river of voices. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. The sound rose, broke, soared.
And in that moment, I saw it. Not in the courthouse or the crowd, but in the sky above us. A space clearing, a silence breaking, a future not yet born but waiting to be claimed. We marched on, not toward justice, but as it.